Welcome to Star Trek Asterisk, the weekly podcast where we watch Star Trek and then talk about it. I am Steve. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Steve.
I'm Zach. You can find me in the bedroom over there.
Okay. And today we watched the motion picture Star Trek: the motion picture. Um, and it was exactly as I remembered it.
Boring and drawn out.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. We watched the director's cut with the hopes that it would be a little better because when they originally made the motion picture, they didn't have time for a sneak preview because the effects budget, or I'm sorry, not the budget, but the actual effects didn't come in until literally the day they were going to screen it for a party type thing at the Air and Space Museum in DC. So they didn't get to sneak preview it before it went out to the public, and which is part of the reason why the effects were long and drawn out, and they just bogged down the story so much. The hope was that in the director's cut, which was put out much later, he would have shortened it, made it more compact, made it focus more on the characters instead of this huge engulfing cloud thing around Voyager.
Voyager.
Did I say Voyager?
Yeah, you said Voyager. But I think it ended up actually being longer.
The movie itself ended up being longer.
I think so.
I think they also added in some scenes that weren't there. Because I also read that when the motion picture was put on the TV, it marked one of the first times that scenes were actually put
Yeah.
in order to, um, well, play on TV. So, but yeah, it ended up being just, longer.
Yeah.
The story, though, if you paid attention beyond or in between naps, was this huge cloud thing is coming. And it's coming toward Earth, and it destroyed a couple of Klingon ships, and so we're interested in why, how, and if it's going to destroy us.
Yes.
The Enterprise, which had undergone an 18-month refit process, which made it look more updated, I guess, if 70s is updated. Well, I guess you could call it not 80s because it's kind of close to that. But anyway, it updated the look of the ship and kind of some of the internal functions. After that 18-month process, since it was still in space dock, it was the only ship close enough to actually go find out what this cloud is all about. So, Starfleet gave Kirk the go ahead to go find it, while Captain Decker was actually the guy who was in charge at the time.
Oops.
So now Kirk is being the jerkhead admiral that's coming onto the ship and taking over instead of some other commodore or whatever. And Decker's all pissed, obviously, and throwing his weight around as much as possible. But he stays on board because he knows more about the refit.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess you could say that.
Well, not as much weight as he ends up having later.
Right. Oh, and Decker is the son of the guy from the Doomsday Machine.
Who was all crazy and scruffy and
Yeah.
went directly into the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah. And which makes it all the more relevant when he stays behind at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
So basically, while they're going out, they bring this chick in who's supposed to be their navigator, And Decker knows her from the past and obviously likes her. And yeah, that's it. All the rest of the crew comes on board. They go out to this thing. You have some bumps and scrapes along the way just because Kirk doesn't know the ship as much as he used to. And when they get to the big cloud, it scans them and takes the chick, the bald chick, Ileana. Yeah, Ileana. And when it takes Ileana, it brings the form of her back, but it's not actually her. It's like a probe. It's a mechanical probe. And she's trying to learn all about the quote-unquote carbon-based life forms that are infecting the ship, because apparently Voyager is looking for its creator, and somehow learning about the carbon-based life forms is going to help with that. Oh, because Voyager is looking for Earth, and Earth has all the carbon-based life forms too.
Yes.
So then it takes about half of the movie to go all the way through the cloud and find Voyager in the center.
Yep.
And if you're still awake at that point, then you find out that Voyager is actually a Voyager probe.
The Voyager 6 probe.
The Voyager 6 to be precise. And which was sent out from NASA 300 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason that when it sent out the signals, it never got a signal back from its creator is because NASA doesn't exist anymore. Nobody is around anymore who can answer that signal. So basically, the only way that Voyager can get to know its creator is to merge with a human. So we got Ileana, who is a Voyager probe, and we got
Probeception?
yes, and we got Decker, who is in love with Ileana. They merge, and
They have sexy time.
pretty much.
They have human machine sexy time.
And with that merger comes a brand new creation
In another dimension.
in another dimension that we don't even see. So, and then the Enterprise comes out of it okay, and the day is saved.
Thanks to the power. No.
Yes. And then it ends up, since Decker is gone now, Kirk is now in charge of the Enterprise, and instead of being an admiral in Starfleet, well, I mean, he's still an admiral, but now he has a commission again. He's got the Enterprise back. And he says, Warp 1, out there, that away.
That away.
And thus signaling the flow of Star Trek movies to come.
Hooray.
And so tell the viewers what you think of the director's cut of the motion picture.
Huh? What? What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to like it. I really did. But I couldn't. It was, I know it sounds bad, but it was almost as bad as the animated series. I think what happened was this. Whereas the animated series failed because it had a bunch of stuff going on, but no real stories, the motion picture had a story, but nothing actually happened.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I liked the stories of the animated series.
Eh.
What got me about the animated series is the actual animation was stunted, and
Well,
yeah,
that was 70s animation for you.
true. But I mean, I just think Star Trek doesn't fit that format.
No, you're right, which is why it only lasted 22
Yeah,
episodes.
yeah, right. And but when you get into the motion picture, I think it actually faces the same problem. It has a story that could have been pretty good, but it just goes through. It focuses on the visuals rather than the story, and you're just left wondering. Okay, we see some pretty awesome things, but they don't mean anything. They're just, like I said, they're just a whole bunch of racks of servers that are useless to us.
Yeah, pretty much.
But other than that, we do have a couple of firsts in this. We have the first sighting of a ridged Klingon.
We have the first spoken Klingon,
Yes.
an actual Klingon, which we learned was Klingon was actually a language invented by none other than Scotty himself. James Doohan invented Klingon. He
Yes.
thought that the Klingons needed to have their own language and at least have some defining characteristics, which is why it has that like sort of stuttered tone to it. And so that was one of the defining features of that. Now they didn't actually write out a language until they got to Star Trek 3, and Leonard Nimoy was who directed that one said, "Okay, look, this has to there has to be some rhyme and reason to this."
Yeah. Right. But the Klingons only showed up for like the first. Well, it takes 5 minutes to actually get to them, but once we get to them, they're only there for like 5 minutes more.
Yeah,
So,
pretty much.
and but that set the precedent. That was like the big thing when it came out. Is all the Trekkers were like, "What the heck are these things?
Right? Yeah.
They're driving in Klingon ships, but what are these ridges? I don't understand." So that was a big thing. What else was there? We learn about Kolinar,
Yeah.
sort of. Did that come up in the original series at all?
No, it didn't.
I don't think it did.
Not to my recollection anyway, but
But we learned that Vulcans have this process of getting rid of their emotions. It doesn't just happen. They actually go through rituals and stuff. And Spock was about to take his final ritual when it came to the leader's attention that he was being distracted by this what was it? This brain pattern or something.
yeah.
Yeah, which was V'ger, we find out, and and in the end, we find that he doesn't actually go through with it. Like he was going to go through with it, but he decides against it, which is interesting because I came across a a complaint about Star Trek once that Vulcans seem to always be forced into an emotional arc into a character arc where they're forced to accept emotion at the end, and that was the complaint that they always do that, and that it was acceptable for Spock because he was half human, but for the rest of the Vulcan characters, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, think that while this their suppression of emotions is so ingrained into their culture, it's it's just like any other cultural construct. It's not necessarily the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the character arc of all these Vulcans is that they come to realize that emotion is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For example, we see Spock in the 2009 movie where he's gotten older in his years and he's come to this emotional enlightenment where he's still kind of reserved and stuff, but he knows the how important the ideas of friendship and love are, and
Love.
and he tries to impart that on his younger self, and that's
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So yeah, that we see that sort of thing starting to happen when he decides not to go through with Kolinar. What else do we got? Anything else in here?
Not really. I mean,
We mentioned Decker,
yeah,
his dad.
we talked all about the Klingons.
Yeah.
Um,
Do we mention Disco Bones?
no. So this is like it's like the Justice League is assembling piece by piece, and they have one more officer to bring aboard. So Kirk's in the transporter room, and they beam aboard this guy, this hairy guy with his beard and his shirt's unbuttoned, and he's got like wearing this gold necklace, and it's Old Man River Bones, and he looks like he got beamed up from a goddamn disco. He really does.
It does. It really does. It's like he retired from the service and went straight into the disco business. Basically,
Pretty much, yeah.
spending all his time dancing on the dance floor. Yeah, but now he's fine. Now he's shaved, and those fracking uniforms.
Oh man,
Those fracking uniforms. I am so glad they changed it in the next movie.
yeah. So am I.
Because those ones are really nice.
I love those uniforms. I do.
But these ones just, they're skin tight. Most of them are jumpers, and what the heck is that even utility thing?
Dude, I don't even know. It's like, is it a cell phone pouch that they're wearing on the front, or you know what it reminds me of? There was this cartoon back in like the early '90s or the late '80s or whatever, and it was called Captain N, and it was about this kid who got sucked into a Nintendo. And he had this belt buckle, and it was an actual Nintendo controller. And he would push buttons, and it would do things. And that's what I thought of.
Nice.
I thought of Captain N.
Oh, if only they did do things. Maybe.
Oh, man.
Maybe the movie would be better.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, but yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yep.
Next week we will be watching one of the greatest movies of all times. Not even one of the greatest Star Trek movies.
One of the greatest movies ever.
Of all time.
Khan!
Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan comes up next week. I do hope you can join us, because that will be awesome.
That would be awesome.
You can call us. Hailing frequencies are open at
513 asterisk. That's 513-278-7475.
Give us a call. You can ask us about the motion picture, about The Wrath of Khan, about anything Star Trek related. And we will answer them on the air, live, just for
And
you.
in living color?
That looks living, don't it, really?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Oh, some new business. We've been trying to do this video thing for a while, and I think we've come to a decision on how exactly to do it. We're going to broadcast it on Ustream. We will
Record the video of the aftermath. We'll continue
Yes.
doing all the audio like we've been doing.
Yeah.
But the video, we will only record the aftermath. However, we will still broadcast the entire thing live.
Exactly. So you can follow along with us live. You can follow along with us with the audio too later on if you wanted to, but you will only be able to see us or just me, depending on if Zach gets on the video that day.
Yeah, I don't know about
While it's live. So that's it.
that. All right, I think we're done here.
So until next week, remember to help control the tribal population.
Have your tribble spayed or neutered.
Live long and prosper.
Goodbye, everybody.